Welcome back to Soccer Cards United. It's episode 242 of the greatest soccer card podcast in the world, which is now officially an award-winning soccer card podcast. Previously, we have been an award runners-up, but now we're award-winning. I'm Jason. That's Enzo. Hi, Enzo.
Hello, Jason.
Let's start straight off with, and this is a very special treat for the viewers of the podcast. The listeners will have to imagine this award here, which is Podcast of the Year 23-24 at the UK and Ireland Card Awards. This is our nice glass sort of trophy. Yeah. Incredible stuff.
Sorry.
How do you feel to be an award-winning podcast host?
I feel like a champion. You know, last year we were runners-up, but last year Ireland wasn't even included in the category. So, of course, by default, we weren't allowed to win, I believe. So, really, I believe this was 2 in a row, as far as I'm concerned, the way I count.
By your count, this is 2 in a row.
Yeah, stop the count. That's 2 in a row.
Right.
We're going for a three-peat next year.
Yeah.
I'm delighted. We deserve to be here, definitely. Our perseverance more than anything, Jason.
Yeah, to keep going.
We've had a lot of feedback about the video podcast recently, Jason, about we need some more better visual, which we're working on. So watch this space, because that is coming. We've been learning from some of the best out there in the business.
Well, literally watch this space.
Illegitimately. Not yet. Don't do it yet. But, you know, eventually, right now, if you're watching this, eventually we're going to have that little, the YouTube clicks up and it's click to subscribe, and then you go over to the bell and you click the bell. I don't know why you need a bell. On. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Notifications on Soccer Cards United videos. An absolute necessity. But no, I feel like an award winner, Jason. I feel good. I haven't held the trophy yet, but we'll get that done, I'm sure, soon. I'm sure.
When you do hold the trophy, we weren't there for the ceremony in July. We couldn't be there.
We snubbed it. The way Ronaldo snubbed. When Ronaldo's not winning it and Modric is winning it, he snubbed the Ballon d'Or. That's what there was. We said, no, we were runner-up when we were there. We had to go and collect the runners-up trophy. Never again, we said.
So. Right. So we gave, I think it was at Manchester CardCon, the awards were. But anyway, it was shipped to us. Unfortunately, it did suffer just a little bit of damage in transit there. But
it's glass.
But it's all right.
I kind of like that. I feel like that's a good representation of our podcast. It's not quite perfect, but it's still the best in the business. That's
right. There you go. And actually, I want to also just cover a quick review that we got on Apple Podcasts.
Yes.
So if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it out on the show. That is our solemn policy. That's our compact with you, the listener. Okay, this is actually from Jason in America, but it's not from me because I'm not in America.
Okay, good. You were in America though.
I was, but if we can cross-reference the dates, I think it all adds up.
Okay.
Okay, so this is this review is titled Fun Podcast with Unique Perspective. 5 stars. The Soccer Cards United lads are lots of fun and offer a unique perspective for those of us in the US who have been in the hobby for decades.
That was the plan.
Now, there you go. Isn't that nice to hear?
That is very nice to hear. Is that the full review? Was that short and sweet?
That was short and sweet, yeah.
I'll say this, Jason. I was thinking about this recently. Since we started the podcast, I feel like we were bridging a gap, but I feel like that we've done our job almost. You know, that gap has been bridged tremendously. I think Europeans are kind of hobby. They're not veterans yet, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them are very handy. They're very literate. And I feel like these days, people in the States are telling me about rookies that I don't know about. They're going, he actually has a rookie card in this set. And I'm like, who is he? And what do you mean? And then I look into it and I'm like, oh shit, that's nice. Yeah. So things are changing. And that's good. That's good. This is what we set it up to do. And I'm not saying our journey's over. Our mission, we're missionaries and the mission's done. Not at all. There's always more to be done. But I will say that has been one of the big changes I've seen in the last few years, is that that is different now from when we started. We had a real blank canvas when we started, but now there's a lot going on.
Well, funny you should mention that, because I put out a podcast clip last night, which was out of context because it's a 20-second clip of an hour-long podcast. But there were people arguing in the comments about arguing, and somebody actually DM'd us. I don't know if you saw this. Somebody DM'd us from one of these clips we put up, and with like a link to the clip in the DM, and just said, "What do you mean by this?" That's a funny thing to say. It's like, go and listen to the podcast. Like, it's from a thing.
Dig
it's
deeper.
Contextualized.
You don't message Joe Rogan and go, "What were you talking about here?"
Yeah. sorry, what's this? What do you mean by this? It's like, go on, there's a full conversation. Anyway, but the fact that people are like arguing in the comments or like, correcting me or correcting each other in the comments is like a sign of like, because like say, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something, or 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Oh my God, how long have we been doing this podcast? You put something up, it would be like, people would be like, what are you talking about? What is this? Like, I don't understand anything that you're saying. Whereas now people are like, I understand it and you don't understand it.
Yeah, which is good. It's pushback.
Pushback is good.
We're no longer kind of at the front of the aggression. What do you call it?
That's right. I know what you're saying. We're no longer at the kind of cutting edge.
Yeah, we're not telling people this is how it is. Wise up. We're saying this is our idea of how it is, and then people are saying, "But this is my idea how it is."
That's what I'm saying. Like that's like kind of what you're talking about as well. Is like it's kind of strange to go from being like kind of
yelling
way
into
out
the
there on the
black
edge.
space. Yeah, we were out on the edge, and now everyone has a tinfoil hat on, just like us.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it takes a bit of getting used to it to be like, what? You have an opinion on this as well?
Yeah, you've been saying for years the moon landing's fake, but people are now telling you time itself is a simulation. Nothing's real.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not
only is the moon landing fake, planes aren't real.
Yeah, that's right. There is no moon. The planes are real, thanks to our good friend. Although, without Aer Lingus sponsoring us, you'd start to think planes are not real.
Although I don't want to give anything away, but we did recently get a lead on Aer Lingus sponsorship. So,
no, stay calm. Move on. Woo-hoo.
I'm gonna move on with that because I'm gonna get too excited. Right, Merlin Chrome is out tomorrow.
Merlin Chrome, I thought it was out Friday.
No, not tomorrow. Friday. Yes. What day is it? Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I got excited. The reason I got excited is that people are ripping it.
Yeah, so you'd be forgiven for thinking it's out tomorrow.
Yeah, so I thought it was out tomorrow because otherwise people wouldn't be ripping 4 days early, would they? But they would. They are.
Wow.
So Merlin Chrome's being ripped, and let me just show you. There's I couldn't find any like primary sources of like I couldn't find any images from the people who are actually ripping it.
Yes.
But Breakfast had on the old story here, the old Instagram story.
Is he breakfast or breakfast?
I guess it's breakfast, but I just say breakfast.
Okay, breakfast. What's breakfast up there?
But it definitely is breakfast, by the way. Yeah. So this is that Francesco Camarda autograph. That's confirmed. Camarda was confirmed.
People are excited about that, by the way. We're a big club, Jason. Big club.
Yeah, first win of under Fonseca there at the weekend.
We're against Liverpool tonight, Jason. That's
yeah,
Arnie Slot.
Let's see if you're as good as Nottingham Forest. Silvano Vos there, another Dutch rookie coming through. Kobe Mainu with the second year cards. Lamine Yamal in an insert called Merlin's Chosen Ones. So these are. This is credit to future_primary_4348. I couldn't find any evidence of that person existing, so we're just going off breakfast here.
It was on Twitter for a while.
Yeah, it was. Mystery Knights. I think we saw in the preview are the Jude of this. This is the Lamine Yamal of this. Gavi, 1 set to 175. Gold. What do you call that? Gold shimmer. Gold shimmer. Something. Anything else? Yes, these are a topic of much discussion. These TCG style inserts.
I want to let the viewer into a little bit of an insight. Is me and Jason seen these cards in advance?
Yes.
When we went to New York City, we got a little sneak preview of an uncut sheet of these cards. Believe it or not, people. We got to learn about how they're printed, how it happens, all that sort of stuff. So we had seen this. We, of course, unlike the people that are ripping this early, we keep a lid on things. We are professional, by the way. But we got to see these cards, and I'm like it. People are just saying they're very Pokemon-esque. Obviously, the round corners helps that as well, and obviously the design itself has very similarities to TCG. I like it. Jason, take it away.
No, I like it as well. I think we always have this discussion with a lot of new products, and every year kind of on new products where it's like there's a constant push-pull happening between people saying, why don't you do something fresh with the design? Why don't you do something interesting with the design? And then as soon as anything fresh or interesting is tried with the design, it's like, not that. Like, I don't know. I don't have any ideas, but I don't like yours.
I like it. It's very Yu-Gi-Oh! It's very Pokemon. I do like it. I don't know. It says, look, TCG style inserts with a question mark, so no one really knows, are they inserts, are they case hits, what are we looking at here?
Yes, because by the way, we've been seeing people open it before a checklist is released.
Yeah. So we're seeing three of them cards have like thunderbolts in the background, and one of them seems to have bubbles, I think.
Something.
Nobody knows what that'll mean.
what that'll mean. No. One thing. This is obviously just because I've seen an uncut sheet of this in person when we went to New York. But these would make a nice set. But then maybe that's just because maybe if I saw any uncut sheet, I would think that the cards contained on the uncut sheet would make a nice like framed set. But these actually would make a nice display.
100%. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of go with it because obviously a lot of the crossover is TCG. A lot of crossover into the hobby is, especially in Europe, is coming from TCG. So, like, will these be super popular because of that?
We'll wait and see. But that's just a little bit on the old Merlin Chrome, which is out on Friday. Actually, I've one more link here to have a look. Just to show you that there are also, as well as Francesco Camada, there are also Victor Gyökeres autographs there.
Not just ripped, it's being broken.
Oh, it's been broken. Yeah, not just ripped. Sorry, it's not just people doing personal rips and then saying, got a box of this. It's actually been broken, yeah.
I never understand how that happened. Do you mean, like, I understand how someone might get it early, but how someone who gets it early is also stupid enough to rip it early?
Yeah. So this is some rookie autos. Victor Gyökeres was in...
Mango Mike.
We don't want to call it Mango Mike, but Mango Mike, we see you. Panini stuff, Donruss, maybe in FIFA Select, or at least Donruss, but didn't have autographs, and now does have autographs for 23-24.
Very, very good.
Okay, so that's Merlin Chrome. We'll talk more about that when it comes out, but thank you to all those who are allowing us to ripping it early. Yeah. Enzo, where were you on the 14th of September? Were you at Topps Hobby Rip Night?
I thought you were about the... Okay, whoa. Yeah, no, I wasn't.
No, me neither. But a lot of people were. And to tell us more, Rich Mueller from Sports Collectors Daily.
Let's go. Is that Tom Brady off the rip?
Yeah, there's Tom Brady.
It's a good thing he's retired because he's making more appearances than when he was playing.
This is a full-time job.
That's right.
Third edition of Topps Hobby Rip Night brought extra customers into over 600 hobby shops around the world on Saturday. While most had pack giveaways, raffles, and other promotional events, shops in larger metropolitan areas welcomed current and former athletes. Tom Brady showed up at the last Rip Night in February. This time he was at Triple Cards in the Dallas area.
Mm.
So there's Tom Brady in a card shop in Dallas. Isn't that exciting?
That is crazy.
Now an in-game analyst. Okay, we all know who Tom Brady is. That's all right. Spurs, San Antonio Spurs phenomenon Victor Wembanyama was there as well in Boomtown Sports Cards in San Antonio.
That's just brilliant.
That's exciting.
To get a current player, that's it's big stuff.
Look at this full court press. This is, I guess, like the local news in San Antonio.
Definitely. I mean, look at it, and that's promoting the hobby. Like, that is good vibes. You can't deny that.
That's amazing. He's like obviously the biggest sports star in that city right now, and he's down at the local card shop ripping packs.
One of the biggest sports stars globally right now, Jason, I think, is not an understatement.
You don't think I need to check my expectations of Victor Wembanyama? He's one of the top sportsmen globally.
Definitely.
Well, there he is. Anyway, he's at Boomtown Sports Cards and Collectibles in San Antonio.
There's Vic.
There's Vic. Did you know Vic before?
No, I just seen on his t-shirt.
Oh,
I don't know Vic personally. That was a big moment for Vic. I like to see it.
That's Vic's making the local news.
That's what I'm saying.
Come on. Okay, Ted Simmons, who's I guess a Hall of Famer, was in St. Louis.
Bronny
James in Santa Monica.
I think Dana White was in the Las Vegas one, which is just funny because Dana White was in Las Vegas all the time.
Yeah, I think he
definitely.
I hope nobody handed him any Star Wars cards because he didn't like that. Okay, but that was all over America, but there was also events around Europe, which was very, very exciting. And some of the guests were revealed in advance. A lot of them weren't, and it was kind of exciting to see. Let's have a look and see who's where. Right, this one in London, Ray Parlour, the Romford Pele was there.
Brilliant.
Arsenal legend, top signee, I believe.
Definitely.
So our Arsenal legend Ray Parlour there in London, very exciting. We had the biggest one I thought was, this made the main Topps account, was Achraf Hakimi, again, current player.
Superstar.
And he was in Paris, I believe, yeah?
I think so, yeah.
where he lives, I guess. And he pulled a Lionel Messi and he gifted it to a young fan, and the young fan was very overwhelmed.
Yeah, he was crying.
He was crying.
Probably seen a few scratches on the surface.
But
That's from the Tough Scrum sets.
that made the main Tops account. That made
No, it was brilliant.
And the story. It was very, very good.
Like, that's what we want to be saying, to be honest. Like, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. I love Tops Hobby Rip Night. Big success.
Big success. Very exciting stuff.
Very big.
It's funny, actually. One thing on that kid crying after Hakimi hands on the Messi. If that was an American hobby child, they'd be like swanning up to the thing, being like dapping them up, like, you know, and like taking offers in the room on
Putting
the
it
card
into
and
a
all
little
this stuff.
small Zion case and just bopping about.
Yeah, whereas like the European kids are like just like their faces are just melting. They're just like, what is this?
Yeah, they don't know the value of the card. They're just crying.
Yeah, so interesting to see. Okay, so that's Tops Hobby Rip Night, and hopefully one of these days, Enzo, we can get a Tops Hobby Rip Night going in Dublin.
Oh, like I seen that article said the last one was in February. So February, just pre-Dublin Card Show. What an experience that would be for. We make the local news, Jason, and then there's a card show next weekend. Who knows going to be there? And and it gets all that's. Listen, let's earmark February. Let's see what we can do.
Oh my god,
that's right.
Speaking of that, actually, speaking of Ireland, we had a question in from Daniel in Ireland.
Oh yeah,
who said, any chance of a little segment next week, which is now, on the hobby in Ireland and changes you've noticed over the last couple of years? I feel a big shift, especially in the last 6 months. I'd be interested to hear from your point of view about the growth of the hobby in Ireland.
Wow. Great question.
Before we start, just to say that Ireland is kind of a similar hobby market to places like Denmark and Sweden and Belgium and the Netherlands and kind of the, you know, smaller European countries. So I presume some of the things we and Portugal, but some of the things we are experiencing here can be extrapolated across Europe.
Yeah, I think since we started this podcast, it's been kind of a goal of ours to grow the hobby in Ireland. Obviously in Europe, but when you're talking Europe, when we're talking Europe, we're talking Ireland as well, obviously, because it's our home country. It's where we're based. When we started our online store, we wanted to be tailoring to Europe and Ireland.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, from our point of view, if you just look at like analytics, like on our website, there's more Irish people than ever on it in terms of traffic. We've had more Irish orders. You know, back in the day, me and Jason knew every Irish customer if they ordered. If I could say their first name, Jason could say their second back to me, or their address or air code back to me. Yeah. But I can now say I don't know every Irish customer at all.
Completely agree.
I see names. I'm like, I don't know this person. You know, there was a few weeks ago, someone on Twitter, I don't know if I spoke about this on the podcast, I might have. Someone on Instagram put up a story thanking like 8 different Irish accounts for helping them get into the hobby and educate them and explain what's going on. Yeah. And I've seen one of the Irish accounts we follow who we do know shared it on their story because they were one of the ones being thanked. And I clicked onto the actual account itself and they didn't follow us. And I was like, oh my God, an Irish person has entered the hobby, has got assistance from 8 different people on Instagram and is engaging with the hobby, doesn't know about us, and I don't know him, and I haven't had to be the one to text him every single bit of detail about the Irish hobby and the hobby. Yeah. So yeah, Daniel is bang on there. And it's funny because we are in such a small market and everyone kind of sells to everyone and that sort of stuff. So like when new people are coming in, you do notice it. So like Daniel's just there being like, I've noticed some mad stuff going on the last 6 months. Do you also see what I'm seeing? And it's like, yep. And I remember when France, and I'm not going to get into France because they always attack me and tell me about their sticker culture. But I remember when that happened in France, not maybe 6 months ago, like there was a huge shift.
And so that happened in France in the 1990s.
I know. It happened in the 1990s. I know. Don't clip this, Jason, please. But I remember it happening. I remember like it's obvious because it's because like no matter how big the hobby is, it's small, if you know what I mean. Like same in America, you know, it's still, they have 600 plus shops, whatever, but it's still small compared to the American population. Like it's not actually, like America
it's a niche hobby.
Yeah, exactly. It's a niche hobby. So you always, like when we go to the national, you're going to see people all the time. As with every American there is going to notice a lot of people. He's from Dallas. He's from here. So it's a small hobby and it's still there. And it's obviously at an even more micro scale in Europe and more micro again in Ireland. So yeah, it's hard. Jason, I remember you bought a Michael Jordan on, I want to say adverts or eBay or something in Ireland, a Michael Jordan PSA 10, random Michael Jordan card.
That's right. Yeah.
And you were like, what the hell? But it's like,
yeah,
a person in this country cannot own and be trying to sell a PSA 10 Michael Jordan without it being seen because it's a niche. You know, we're going to see it. Mm-hmm. If someone hits a 101, if someone hits an of 25 Lumini Mal Sapphire, and they put it on eBay, we are going to see that card, and therefore we're going to notice a new person in the hobby or whatever. So like, yeah, I Daniel's sentiment is totally right. I mean, we have card shows happening more frequently here. We obviously do the Dublin card show, but there's also another show that goes on 4 times a year, the Ireland card show here that we've been attending. So yeah, the hobby, and I suppose when you see everything that's happening in the UK, you see Ray Parlour, you see Hakimi, Topps Hobby Rip Night, like that sort of stuff hits local news, and people are going, "What's going on? What are cards? What's going on?" You know,
Yeah.
Netflix King of
Um,
Collectibles as well, like all that sort of stuff. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that just speaking of the Michael Jordan that I bought, the PS10 Michael Jordan back in the day, that was still definitely during COVID. It might have been 2020, and I bought that. And that was at a time when if you searched for cards on Irish eBay or adverts or Done Deal or any of these other Irish kind of classified ads things, you would find cards, but you generally the same story would apply to the cards could be kind of fit into different categories. Either they were match attacks and kind of trading card games cards. They were vintage stuff like stickers or cigarette cards or that kind of thing that generally would be released in the UK and would get an Irish release as well. Or and kind of in that category, but like also like promotional stuff that came in like various like cereal boxes and all that kind of stuff. Or it would be stuff basketball, baseball, hockey. I remember as well that people who obviously a lot of Irish people go and emigrate, but also go and live for a while in America or Canada. And there was an awful lot of people who had been to the States or to Canada, gotten into the hobby while they were there, and then come back, brought their cards with them, and then decided, well, what am I doing with these here now? I'm going to try and sell them. And so I think that Michael Jordan was in that last category of someone who bought that while they were in the States. They'd come back and now they're trying to sell it, and that kind of stuff was lying all around. But now people are actually ripping boxes. They're buying into breaks. There are like hits being hit that are staying within the Irish or the European hobby that aren't just like kind of leftovers from someone who bought a pack of baseball cards or bought a Michael Jordan card while they were in America. So it's just great to see the kind of peer-to-peer and the organic growth as opposed to just like the imported stuff.
Definitely. And like obviously, like look, we've appeared on TV twice. We've done radio ads. We've hosted the event. Like we've been promoting it as well. That like that's a micro of then what Topps and Fanatics have been doing, and then what other Europeans have been doing, and it's just kind of like, I mean, the hobby's growing. It's being marketed, and people are kind of sticking to it. People are getting into it and getting involved.
Yeah. Somebody said to me that they heard because I don't know about this. I don't know about you, Enzo, but when people who kind of vaguely know what I do for a living often think that I must be big into Pokemon cards. Just because when they think of cards, they think of Pokemon cards. So sometimes people will tell me Pokemon card related things, and I have to go, oh yeah. But someone said that there was a question, like a thing on Irish radio, one of the Dublin stations here, where the hosts were talking about a text they got in as an advice segment, and it was like, I broke up with my girlfriend, and I moved out of where we were living, and it's been like 4 months, but she still has all my Pokemon cards. How do I? We haven't been talking. How do I go and get them? Like, am I okay to go and get whatever? And they were talking about it, but like at no point in this segment, according to the person who told me it, at no point in the segment did anyone say like Pokemon cards, or like, what are you doing Pokemon cards, or like, why would you want to get them, or like, you're a grown man, why are you worried about? So it was like, it's interesting to just find out like the kind of culture of cards in general becoming much more accepted as a kind of collectibles thing, as kind of a hobby, and kind of mainstreaming a little bit.
No, 100%. I mean, it's, I don't know. There's not a lot more to be said. Like he's right in what he's saying. The last 6 months, we've seen a bigger growth. Even on eBay, because a lot of people won't necessarily know our brand name and therefore don't find our website necessarily, but they'll find our eBay when they see a box and they see it's in Ireland or whatever, they're trying to buy
the
it.
specific items. Yeah.
Well,
here's one. Let's kind of spin out this conversation into a wider one. When you look at countries like Ireland, Denmark, Belgium, who are these smaller European countries where the hobby is definitely growing, if in the last 6 months to a year we've seen big growth, what are kind of the enablers for that growth to continue or for that growth to accelerate? Like, is it just kind of a matter of time? Is it just like, we are where the UK was 3 or 4 years, where Germany was 3, 4, 5 years ago, and in time we'll be where they are? Or are there specific things that these smaller markets might need that the bigger markets don't need that can help?
Yeah, I think one thing that maybe people don't like to hear, but I think is true, especially in Europe, I can't talk on the States, but is you do need people buying into breaks. because I do think what we've seen when we go to Denmark, the people with the best cards cut them from breaks pretty much, as opposed to ripping boxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then kind of tagged into that, because that's more of a community thing. I don't mean, when I say breaks, I don't mean just one breaker. You know, I mean people pooling money together to buy a case.
Group breaks.
Group breaks, yeah, with friends.
Yeah.
And then events. I think trade nights, card shows, I think are huge, because you need to kind of, it can't just be an online hobby. You know, like there needs to be that kind of physical aspect. I think obviously we do, you know yourself, we do PSA submissions for Irish people only. So we do not add on top of what our kind of cost is to kind of get it, grade it, ship it, return it back, give it back to them. Because we think it's important for people to have graded cards, because obviously if you hit a big card and then you can get a PSA 10, which increases the value of it and also increases the ease at which you can sell it. Because like if you're in the States wanting to buy a card out of Ireland, you're more confident if it's PSA graded, because it's not going to get damaged in commute necessarily. You know, it's going to be, you need a bigger set of damage to break that. So I'd say card shows, access to grading, access to boxes, access to supplies, which is like a funny one, but I do remember like one of the things that almost stop you opening boxes is that you don't have top loaders or sleeves. Like that is actually an important.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I think that, like that kind of stuff seems simple, and I think also it's easier in markets like it's funny because obviously, right, you have the UK, which since Brexit is its own kind of economic unit, and so that kind of set the Irish hobby, I think, back maybe 2 years. I think this growth that we're seeing now, we would have seen a long time ago.
Yeah.
If you were able to shop kind of between Ireland and Britain unaffected. Germany as well. It's interesting. Like Germany is obviously part of the EU, because in theory, like all these countries are in the European Union. So like we should be able, the Irish hobby shouldn't necessarily just be the Irish hobby. It should be also included in the Spanish hobby, the Italian hobby, the French hobby. But like and kind of like in theory, and maybe on a, you know, between breakers or between, if we're selling a case to somebody or we're buying a case from somebody on the kind of business to business level, that can work, because you have enough of an interest in it to make it work. But on a practical level, for the everyday collector, that's not happening. If you're in Holland, most of your interactions within the hobby are with other Dutch people and so on. But I think,
another kind of part of Brexit, and we've said it before on the podcast, is like, if we're selling a case to a business in Germany, there is oftentimes someone in Germany will message us and go, "Do I have to pay imports on this? Are you part of the European Union or not? I don't know. Are you the UK?" There is a lot of that. So imagine if you're just an Irish guy with a PSA 10, Ronaldo, whatever autograph on eBay, and people are looking at it from Spain going, "I actually want that," or Portugal going, "I actually want to buy that, but I think he's in the UK, so I think there's imports, so I won't buy it." Like it set Ireland back a lot, Brexit, because there is that weird grey area. I honestly think like Ireland, the country, should invest in advertisements in European countries to say, "Hey, we're in Europe still." By the way, like genuinely,
we should do like kind of like a differentiation kind of advertising and say, "Hey, 100%. Ireland, like a big poster, Ireland, it's not Britain."
Yeah, 100%. Like genuinely, I think that should happen, because there is a huge. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it affects other industries in this country. I'm saying, not just sports.
Yeah. There's definitely a question mark over it. But even stuff like, everyone's in the EU, but not everyone's in the Eurozone. So you have like the Danish kroner, in Poland they're using the zloty or whatever. So it's like there is still, especially with platforms like PayPal being so common, it's like what kind of seems like an easy currency conversion quickly becomes an extra 5% or 10% cost on top. So yeah, it's I think there's still a lot of problems to be solved. But as you say, like there's no kind of substitute for in-person events and community events. So that is kind of a key driver of it. Because like, I'm sure if you have a vendor from, I mean, we've seen this, like what example will I use? I'll use the Nordic Card Show as an example.
Yeah.
We've been to a few Nordic Card Shows or the Paris Card Show. And if kind of Irish people keep turning up in Copenhagen, then there's going to be some sort of like long-term link formed there between Irish collectors and Danish collectors. If we have, collectors from Scotland coming over all the time to the Dublin Card Show, then you're going to meet people, and that's going to, so you almost have to do it like in reverse. You have to kind of like do the in-person bit so that the online bit becomes
doable.
And you can put faces to names, and you can kind of shake hands, and you can like, it's just much easier. So I think maybe that just takes time.
I agree with that. I think that's why like hosting Dublin Card Show and getting so much support from international vendors and international attendees helps the Irish hobby, because they're interacting with people in Ireland that are then more comfortable flying to a London card show or a German card show, and are also, without even doing that, are more confident selling and shipping cards from Ireland to Germany, because I met that fella at the Dublin show, or I met him at the Scotland show, or whatever. So yeah, that's all kind of driving the higher end of it. But in terms of like new people coming in, I think it's just natural as well. Like, not natural because it's been purposely done to promote the hobby, but I think a lot of people are kind of ending up. But it's like, how do you get it to stick? How do you keep? And that's the education. That's the events of kind of like, oh, I just start buying these cards, and then someone being able to go, oh, next month there's a card show on in Dublin. Come, see how it goes.
I mean, even like one thing that comes up a lot in Ireland, and I mean, it comes up a lot everywhere, to be honest, but like people message us all the time and ask, can we help them comp their cards?
Yeah.
And one thing that kind of I've had kind of many conversations with someone where like you might spend 20 minutes talking to somebody on in the DMs or whatever, trying to comp their cards, and you eventually get to a comp and you're like, so it's probably 70 to 80 euro is probably where you are. And it's like, they're like, oh, cool. And then they say, would you have any interest in buying it? And most of the time I just say, no, it's not really for me, just because, partly because I don't want to necessarily buy all these cards, but also because it's nice to keep things kind of like a bit separate or whatever, but you want to buy it? And it's like, yeah, like I do 50, and they kind of go, we just spent the last 20 minutes agreeing that the price was 70 to 80. And it's kind of like you have to sell enough cards in your lifetime to realize that is the sale price. Then there's kind of a take home price. And, when you're used to going to card shows, setting up, or used to selling loads of cards on eBay or whatever, like, if you've kind of been in the hobby, and not just been in the hobby, but like you've actually sold through a kind of a critical mass of cards, then you learn what an acceptable margin is on these cards, or what comps mean. Comps are not take home. But that kind of stuff only comes from experience. So I think it's kind of almost like you have to like kind of like get your reps in. You have to just like, you kind of want people buying and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling enough times to where they're just
ready to go. You need your 10,000 hours.
That's exactly it. Yeah. You need your 10,000 hours. Yeah. So someone should write a book about that concept. Anyway, that's the hobby. That's the hobby in Ireland.
Yep, and probably very representative of what's happening in the smaller European countries as well.
I think so. We've had another twist in the Panini stained glass Topps Renaissance story.
Another one?
Yes.
Tell me.
So Kevin got in touch, and Kevin said, speaking of all this, are you familiar with Topps Gallery of Heroes?
I'm not.
And I said, no, I'm not familiar with Topps Gallery of Heroes. But this is a die-cut insert from the 90s. So if you're French, you may have heard of this, apparently. And it is, let me show you this. It's from Topps. It's a die-cut stained glass inspired design.
Okay, but that's still a person, not a stained glass version of a person.
No, but what I'm saying is, if you remember 18 weeks ago when we started this conversation.
I like the back to front.
Oh, look at that. It's like you're looking from the other side of the window.
Yeah. That's good.
That's a great detail. Yeah, that's fantastic. I didn't even notice that when I was looking at it.
Yeah, that's very good.
But if you remember when we started this conversation a long time ago, the whole thing was that Renaissance came out quite clearly at the time. It seemed to us quite clearly copying stained glass.
I see what you're saying now.
And that the two designs were then converging into each other. But actually, it turns out that Panini, who are later to this kind of premium card hobby than Topps, they weren't even the first ones to do stained glass. Yeah.
And funny enough, so far the best one is probably the one we're looking at now, because that back view is brilliant.
That's a great idea. That's a phenomenal use
it's
of
great technology. We need that. I need that exact thing. Whether it's die cut or not, I don't care. It needs to be implemented with the player themselves in stained glass. Can someone do that for me, please?
So you're saying take this, take the kind of back to front mirror image.
Keep that.
That's
incredible.
Heroes. Keep that. That's brilliant. And then, but stained glass Tim Duncan here.
Do you know what, Jason? Will you send me a photo of that into our Facebook, and also send me a photo of, remember the one, the Iniesta that was online?
Yes.
I want to get this. I'm going to send this to some designers. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get that.
Oh my word.
We're going to see that in a set. I guarantee. I'm going to say, yo, look at this. Do it. To someone in the company itself.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to say, do this. I'm going to abuse a piece of contact that I have with someone to do that. I don't care.
Yeah, you're going to violate some sort of trust when someone gives you their phone number. There's this kind of a understanding that you won't misuse it, but you're saying this is too important.
It's. I'm not misusing it. Merlin next year will have that in it, and it'll be unreal. I guarantee. That's my
God
to the people.
You put your reputation on the line here.
My reputation's on the line here.
My God. Okay, that's all I had for Hobby HQ. Are you okay before I move on to the football, or is there any other business?
There's no other business. I'm happy.
All right, great. Well, tonight, Tuesday night, is the return of the Champions League, the UEFA Champions League.
In a format we've never seen before.
There's a new format, the Swiss format, they're calling it.
The Super League.
It's a Super League situation. And just before we go into fixtures and kind of look ahead to this year's Champions League, just very briefly to run over what the format is, because I guess a lot of people may not know. As far as I understand, there are 2 extra games in the group stage. There's no longer a group stage, but you know what I mean?
In the league phase.
I'll start here and we'll go from there. Okay.
But there's 2 extra games, but not really. If you finish top of your group, you're playing, I think, the same or less games than you would otherwise, I believe.
No, there's 2 extra. So you play 8 games instead of 6 in the league stage.
Yeah.
And then the top 8 go through to a knockout, go straight through to the knockout. And then there's a 2-legged playoff to get into the other side of the knockout. So everyone plays 2 extra games, but you could end up playing 4 extra games.
Right, I didn't know that. Okay. Well,
I think that's right.
We're
going to discover this. Here. Yeah. Okay. 2024-25 edition of the UEFA Champions League follow new format. There's a reason that the European football, blah, 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 blah. To ensure, okay. How will the Champions League change? Right. The pivotal change in the reforms announced by the UEFA Executive Committee is the departure from the current format's group stage system. The present Champions League group stage includes 32 participants divided into 8 groups of 4. From the 24-25 season, which is starting tonight, 36 clubs instead of 32 will participate in the Champions League league phase, formerly group stage.
Wait, Champions League phase? That's terrible.
They haven't really thought that through. No. So these 36 clubs will participate in a single league competition in which all 36 competing clubs are ranked together.
Great.
So under the new format, teams will play 8 matches in the new league phase, formerly group stage. They will no longer play 3 opponents twice, home and away, but will instead face fixtures against 8 different teams, playing half of those matches at home and half of them away.
I do like that, by the way.
Right. To determine the 8 different opponents, the teams will initially be ranked in the 4 seeding pots. Each team will then be drawn to play 2 opponents from each of these pots, playing 1 match against a team from each pot at home and 1 away. So there's kind of everyone plays kind of similar fixtures of similar difficulty, but just like the group stage, I guess some people will end up in what would have previously been a group of death, but is now a kind of fixture list of death. Okay. How will they be allocated? Blah, 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 blah. How will they reach the knockout phase? The results of each match will decide the overall ranking in the new league with 3 points for win, 1 for a draw. The top 8 sides in the league will qualify automatically for the round of 16, while the teams finishing 9th to 24th will compete in a 2-legged knockout phase playoff to secure their path to the last 16 in the competition. Teams that finish 25th or lower will be eliminated, and nobody will drop down to any other competition.
I do like that as well.
So the Europa League, the days of Sevilla winning the Europa League after qualifying for the Champions League are done.
Finished.
The Europa League's been shut off. It's been hermetically sealed. You can't get in.
I like that.
The new format will mean that there is more to play for all the way through the final night of the league phase. Well, arguably there was always something to play for.
Oh, it's a bit bad.
I don't know how many. Yeah. In the knockout phase, the teams that finish between 9th and 16th will be seeded in the knockout phase playoff draw, meaning they will face a team placed 17th to 24th, with in principle the return leg at home. So the higher, a bit like a Serie B situation.
Yeah, 100%.
You get rewarded for finishing higher up the table. If you finish 9th, then you're more likely to go through than someone finishing.
Is it safe to assume if you finish first, you're not getting anything for that? You just, there's no trophy. It's not like the MLS. You're not getting your conference and then you're fighting for the MLS Cup.
Oh, there's no league. There's no league kind of regular season Champions League trophy.
I guess not. Maybe there should be.
I guess not. But I think from the round of 16 onwards, competition will continue to follow its existing formats, leading to a final in a neutral venue. So that's basically it. All games before the final will continue to be played midweek, recognise the importance of domestic leagues. So they're saying, we're not a Super League.
Yeah, great.
Will the Europa League and Europa Conference League change too? Yes. Similar formats will be applied to the Europa League and the Europa Conference League, which will be called the UEFA Conference League as of 24-25, with both teams also featuring 36 teams in the league phase. So, September to January, the league matches. And then, yeah. So that's our situation.
I think it's good. I like the idea of like Milan get to play 7 different teams.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you play someone, you have to play them again. To be honest, I like the lottery system of, like, for example, in years gone past, let's say you're a Celtic fan, you could end up kind of traveling to the Camp Nou over the span of 5 years, maybe 3 times. If you ended up in a group with Barcelona, right, or if you get the knockout stage against Barcelona. Whereas like this league format, if it was to continue, because I know that's they're trialing it for a few years and then they're going to reevaluate it. But if it was to continue, it's like a trip to the Camp Nou becomes an even more kind of potentially even more rare kind of thing, because it's like you could draw them one year, but you're at home instead of being at the Camp Nou. So it's like that kind of, to go into those kind of special football grounds, it might become even more special, because it's not necessarily like, yeah, we kind of tend to do that once every second year. It's kind of like, shit, we haven't done that in 6 years. That's going to be mental. We're going to Anfield, whatever. I kind of like it for that a little bit, maybe, because I think it makes those trips kind of more special when they do come around. It's kind of like, holy shit. But then the flip side, you could say it's a bit sad, because if you're someone that actually travels all the time to the games, it's kind of like, oh, what the fuck. But then you're traveling to more places. I don't know. I'm torn.
It's hard to say. UEFA have a pitch here for the fans. So how will it benefit the fans? They say the new league form will involve more European teams in each competition, and will allow fans to not only see more European matches, but to also see those matches take place earlier in the competition. So it's more top matches, because obviously you get drawn, you have to play some of the top sides. So the idea is that if you're PSG and you get drawn in a group with,
Real Madrid.
No. I'm saying in the previous format, you could be PSG and you can get drawn with Benfica, Rangers, and Dinamo Zagreb. And the idea is that nobody in a neutral situation is going to necessarily want to watch
any of
those. Whereas this way, you'll have to play some of the top teams before Christmas.
Makes sense.
The new format introduces better competitive balance between all the teams, with the possibility for each team to play opponents of a similar competitive level throughout the league phase. So this kind of UEFA using some of their experience from the Nations League, to say, again, if you are kind of Red Star Belgrade or something, you don't just, or you're Celtic, you don't just get walloped for sort of 6 games in a row, because eventually you'll come up against someone who's at a similar league position as you.
Okay.
And every game counts. The new league format will ensure that any result has the potential to dramatically change a team's position. Okay, that's I'm less convinced on that. But yeah, so that's the new Champions League format.
Yeah, well, we won't really know how it feels, how it is, until it's done. So we need to just trial it out this year. But I'm optimistic enough about it. I don't think it's terrible. Normally, when they make changes to the game, I kind of hate it. But it's not atrocious.
No, it's not atrocious. I actually think like the worst thing about it is the extra
games,
potentially extra 4 games. But the idea of the league system,
it's extra 2 games, because the idea is, if you're a smaller club, that the extra 4, if you're doing extra 4 games, it just means that you have an opportunity that qualifiers in the past you probably wouldn't have.
True, that's true. I suppose, yeah.
Not awful, but I know what you're saying.
So, upcoming this week,
you can also say not drop it into the Europa League reduces how many games teams will play over the course of the year. So, yeah,
because there was a playoff thing in the Europa League or something like that, where you had to play. Anyway,
like you could play like a full Champions League group stage and end up having to play like a full Europa League knockout, whereas that's not necessarily here anymore. So that's kind of
good. There is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night Champions League. That's the biggest material change to your schedule.
Oh my god! I used to be busy on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Now my Thursdays are busy too.
Yeah, now you're block booked.
That also messes up our podcast schedule, Jason. Famously, our Thursdays were to cover the Tuesday, Wednesday.
But now it'll be, doesn't matter.
Wow.
So that'll be interesting.
AC Milan, Liverpool. I could have been at that.
AC Milan, Liverpool.
I made a big mistake.
Oof.
They asked me.
Pretty exciting stuff.
Can't do it. Yeah, that's a big one.
Rematch of the 2005-2007 Champions League finals.
Yeah, definitely.
2 European heavyweights.
No doubt about it. A big curtain raiser for the first match day of the new format.
Yeah, two new managers. So let's have a look. Your manager has a lot more hair than their manager, so we'll see if that bears any effect on the result. Let's have a look at any standout fixtures here that I can see. Like, okay, so you do have, like, looking at Wednesday, Bologna, Shakhtar, Sparta Prague and Salzburg, Club Brugge, Dortmund, Celtic, Slovan Bratislava, Man City, Inter, previous final from 2 years ago, I think, and Paris Saint-Germain and Girona. So in terms of increasing the number of high quality games, there may be an increase in the number of high quality games, but they're buried in other fixtures that people maybe similarly aren't interested in.
Yeah, that doesn't look like an incredible match day on the Wednesday.
No.
But on the flip side, like, they all look like fairly close games to a degree. You know what I mean?
Which
like,
is, I suppose, that's the idea as well, is
Yeah.
that there's not as many kind of blowouts.
Yeah, there's not a lot between them necessarily.
Yeah. Europa League champions Atalanta playing Arsenal. Brest Sturm Graz, Monaco Barcelona, Feyenoord Leverkusen, Cervena Zvezda Benfica, and Atleti Leipzig. So yeah, like it's kind of a weird. It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird, but we're into it. Let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes. I'm not completely
Convinced
against it.
Yeah, neither am I. I'm interested to see how it goes. I don't know how I feel really until I see. But like you see it, obviously Milan against Liverpool as a opening day group stage fixture, quote unquote, is a blockbuster, you know. But and that could happen in the past, but not as frequently.
Yeah. It's kind of I don't know who exactly benefits, but I see the idea of like you'll get to play more games in which you're competitive.
You get to play against more teams, which is fun.
Yeah, you get to play against more teams. The top teams will get to play against more top teams than they would usually get to play against.
Yeah.
Which will help them, and it kind of and it's more games, and it's more games involving top teams, which means it's more TV money in theory.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I like the idea of having like so many different teams to play against. You know, if you win the Champions League now, you're going to have played so many different European teams instead of I played these fellas twice in the group stage. Like, that was a bit lethargic.
Also, should say if these competitions are going from 32 team to 36 teams, that's more teams to be included in top UEFA products.
That's true.
That's 4 new Champions League teams for Museum.
And when you have more games, there's more of a chance for like a rookie to score a goal and therefore qualify for a tops now or whatever. So it could be good in terms of hobby. It could be very good.
Yeah.
I don't love like a league system where someone can come first without having ever played the person that came second. If you know what I mean? Like, it's like
kind of a strange league system.
It's a strange system because you haven't, but it's also like, no, you've had these challenges put in front of you and you scored the most and won the most or whatever. So it'll be interesting. I wonder if Real Madrid will still have their mojo in this type of a format. Was Modric going mad? He's like, we've perfected the group stage system.
Yeah.
Don't make me do
that. Will be interesting. But it also, like, in theory, should, in terms of rookies, if you have those 2 extra games in the group stage, and if you're a team with a lot of, in a country where you have a cup and a league cup like England, then you're going to have to use your whole squad. And in theory, we should see, in practice, probably what we'll just see is more injuries and more, greater player burnout. But what we should see is a greater use of the panel of players available at a team. So in theory, I think it's good for the hobby.
We'll wait and see. We'll find out tonight.
All right. We're back on Thursday for episode 243. Thank you for voting for us for this Podcast of the Year award.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And have a good week.
Same to you, Jason. Have a good one.